to just not have to be part of that polypharmacy thing, where people like have one prescription and then they need another prescription to take care of the side effects of that first prescription. And then all of a sudden you've got like 6, 7 prescriptions lined up in your bathroom. This is what I saw in my family growing up. And I'm dead set on not having that in my life as I get older.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching our videos. If you'd like to support us some more, you can explore our homemade natural skincare products at purelytallow.com. Thank you so much for supporting my small business.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Carnivore Revolution. I'm Serena, and today my special guest is Linda Saland. You know her as the Carnitarian on Instagram. Linda, thank you so much for being with me today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
I'm so excited to share your story because I think the more times we can get people's story about the things they healed and the things that got better from carnivore, I think the more people we can help. So let's start there. Let's start with what brought you to carnivore.
So I started carnivore way back in 2015, and really I was looking just to get back to a ketogenic diet. I was just trying to lose a few pounds, and I said, well, a ketogenic diet is what I feel best on, and I know I can kind of trim down that way. So let's dive back into a ketogenic diet. But then at that time, there was a very popular Facebook group called Zeroing In on Health, which a lot of people probably know about. They started talking about, they had been talking about this carnivore diet. There were so many people in that group and lots of really intelligent conversations going on in that group. And I said, well, that sounds intriguing. Like that's like what I was doing was kind of like an Atkins induction. And this was kind of like Atkins induction on steroids, where you just kind of get rid of the broccoli, get rid of the Brussels sprouts, and just have the steak and the blue cheese, which was the part of Atkins that I loved the best anyway. So I said, all right, I'll do 30 days of the carnivore diet and see if I can just, trim down, lose a few pounds, just some baby weight that had been stuck on me. And after 30 days, there were improvements that I didn't realize I could fix with diet. One of the first things that I noticed was that like my knee pain was gone. I had had knee pain since my 20s, my early 20s. And so just walking upstairs was hard. I was always looking for elevators, right? And that knee pain went away. And I was like, well, that's pretty good. And then one day I realized I haven't had a migraine in a really long time. And I used to get daily migraines, and I was like, wait a minute. This is amazing.
And then you start going down your checklist of things that were wrong. Right. Like, wait, that doesn't hurt me anymore. And that doesn't bother me anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. So, there's this ridiculously long list of things that were improved. It sounds so silly, but this is what we hear from people all the time is there's like this unbelievable story of, carnivore fixes everything. And it's definitely not a cure-all. It doesn't fix everything, but there's this long list of things that it can help. Like I had eczema, like a strange spot of eczema that's not come back. Things like amenorrhea, like my period would just go missing. Now, then that was fixed. So other things like interstitial cystitis, which is super painful. I don't know if your listeners are familiar. It's like a chronic bladder pain. It's really painful. And generally, the idea is that it's caused by oxalate, and a low carbohydrate diet can be very high in oxalate when we're doing all those leafy greens. So, I was one of those. Yeah, I was flour things. Right, exactly. So I was one of those people who was doing almond flour things, but doing a lot of spinach, like a lot of spinach, a lot of kale, and sweet potatoes, just my whole life, I was doing things like that. And so that stuff kind of builds up. And so this, chronic bladder pain, it feels like a UTI, but it doesn't go away and it can't be treated with antibiotics. So it's really upsetting. It's the kind of thing where you don't want to get up in the morning and do anything because you're like sort of laying in pain. And that leads to depression, and then that leads to anxiety. And then it's just a steamroll effect of, quality of life. So when those things started to get better, I said, and bloating, first of all, I'm so happy that one's gone. There's just no reason for me to bring back in, the vegetables, the fruits, the vegetables. I'm done with it. At this point, if I eat fruit, I swell. Like I've got lipedema too, which is triggered, swelling. Sugar can trigger that to feel really bad. And also, this list is so long. But like chronic venous insufficiency was another thing that I've been dealing with. So I've got generally unhealthy veins. I had them, they do this where they strip the veins, your saphenous vein, your greater and your lower saphenous vein. I had that done. And now my veins are generally very healthy. Like they were supposed to get diseased again. And when I went back to visit my vein doctor, he was like, "You look great. What have you been doing?" And then we chatted about carnivore for a while because he'd never seen veins that were like mine that didn't degrade again after the procedure. So, there was just no reason for me to dip back into any kind of standard American diet where I was going to end up with inflammation, headaches, any of those symptoms again. So I've stuck with it for 9 years now. It's a long time.
Yeah, that is a long time. When you look back at it, does it surprise you that it's been so long? I mean, that's a long time.
It's a really long time. It's wild. It's incredible because I'm not one of the first to do it. I kind of caught there in the middle.
Yeah.
There are people who were doing it for 20 years before me. Yeah. And so to think now those people are in it for almost 30 years, this is not a fad diet the way that people will go on about it's not sustainable. It's a fad diet. You're going to die of heart disease, colon cancer, all those things. Absolutely not. Like there are people who do this long term and the time just goes by. And honestly, I think we're having the most fun because we're not the ones at the doctor's appointments, so time flies. Yeah.
It's really amazing how, I mean, that's one of the things you can add to the list is not having to go to the doctor for sicknesses as much, right? I mean, like, I have a little something going on here. You can probably hear it, but it's nothing I need to go to the doctor for. That's the thing is I haven't been to the doctor for sickness in years, especially since I became a carnivore. Like we don't have as many things wrong with us.
Right. I mean, it's one of my goals in life to not have to be on any kind of management medication, to just not have to be part of that polypharmacy thing, where people like have one prescription and then they need another prescription to take care of the side effects of that first prescription. And then all of a sudden you've got like 6, 7 prescriptions lined up in your bathroom. This is what I saw in my family growing up. And I'm dead set on not having that in my life as I get older,
Yeah. I mean, it's really unfortunate that that's where our medical system is now, though. That's where it is it's just management of sicknesses. It's sick care. It's not well care.
Absolutely.
So I think I agree with you. I think that it's so important. So back to your health stuff. How strict did you have to be in order to get those results? Like, were you really strict carnivore?
No, absolutely not. So there was never a time when I ever did just beef and water or ruminant meat and water. So I've never done just a lion diet kind of a thing. Zero carb carnivore to me was always included dairy. I always included coffee and I always included spices. And so I was fine. I got all of those things with that level of carnivore. And so I've sort of maintained that. I've brought back now in recent years, I've brought back in a little more onion. I spice and I make some chili. I've brought back a little more tomato paste and I put some of that on like meatballs and in the chili. And I'm absolutely fine with it. It's not enough fiber to really mess with me. And it doesn't cause me any swelling. So I'm really happy I can bring those things back in. But generally, I'm just like standard carnivore, casual with it. I do stevia, but I don't do any artificial sweeteners, no artificial colors, no artificial flavors, absolutely no keto treats or any garbage food like that. So that's about where I land. I do a lot of whole cuts, a lot of ground meats, and a lot of like canned fish kind of stuff.
So what about your family? Did you get any backlash or anything from your family and friends when you said, so I know they say meat is bad for you, but I'm going to just eat that now?
Well, I'll tell you, to be honest, for a while there, the only person in my family who knew was my husband. And he was like, "Oh, I see how you do."
Yeah.
And he was pleased that I was in less pain during the day. So he was like, "Just keep it going." And the rest of my family didn't find out for like a year because I just, would eat what was like, I would eat mainly the meat. And I had during that first year, I would do like a standard American diet holiday meal, like that one big important meal,
Uh-huh.
eat the things, I would feel terrible. And it would remind me, this is
This
I
is
know that there's no point in bringing back any of those things, right? So for that first year, all those little trials of like Christmas dinner and Thanksgiving dinner, where I was with family, they would see me eat the things. And then I would be doubled over. They'd all be doubled over too, but that's the normal.
right. Exactly. That's their norm. And it's not just on holidays for other people.
But I'll tell you what, in general, it wasn't something that I talked to a lot of people about because it seemed at that time in 2015, right? Like that was before anybody had heard about it, before the podcasts were talking about it. It was really just like a Facebook group thing. And, far fewer people were discussing carnivore diet. And so I just didn't bring it up with people. And, when I would mention like, oh, I only eat meat, people would think that I meant I eat a lot of meat.
Right.
And so I remember this conversation once with my dance instructor, and he said to me, we were talking about a dinner, and I said, because, I only eat meat, so I'm not going to eat like the vegetables. He's like, what are you talking about? Now, he had been my partner for years, and I had been only eating meat for years. And I had said to him, I told you I only eat meat. And he was like, really? I said, I only eat meat. He's like, I thought you were kidding. Like, it was so funny. I was like, no, I only eat meat. And he was like, well, you look pretty good for that. I was like, oh, I told you this is what I'm doing. It was funny. It was a funny moment.
That's awesome. So no huge backlash from friends and family. So your family now, like your husband and your kids, is anybody else in your household carnivore now?
No, my husband tried it for a short while. He was carnivore for like maybe a couple of months, but he's a huge salad eater. He loves his salad. So generally he's lower carb. He'll still have sandwiches. The rest of my family, no, they are not close to carnivore. My kids eat all the things. I don't push this on them. I am just heavy on prioritizing protein with my kids. And so I make sure that every meal is all about the protein. Typically my boy, he doesn't need any side dishes at all. So if we're having steaks, if we're having burgers, he's just having steak. He's just having burgers. But his lunch, could be like cauliflower rice and, all of the other things. And so, he'll have pancakes for breakfast. Yeah. So it's, the kids do not what I do. Yeah, they don't do what I do.
That's how it is in my house too. A little while ago, you mentioned Atkins, that you had kind of started with Atkins. And so I just want to mention, because so many people believe that Atkins died of a heart attack, and he did not.
Right. No, he slipped on ice in New York City. That's where his offices were. And I mean, what a sad situation.
Yeah. And so many people like to say, and you guys can Google it, you can see, but that's like, as soon as you mention Atkins in this kind of space, people say, oh yeah, but he died of a heart attack, or he died of heart disease. And he did have issues with his heart and gained a lot of weight. I mean, I hate to even throw out a number, 20, 30, 40 pounds, something like that, from water after he hit his head while he was like in a coma. And so he was inflamed. And there is a note about that he was overweight and things like that on the report. But he wasn't when he fell. And so it's just a really sad thing that his passing kind of tarnished his legacy. I know keto and Atkins itself has a lot of processed foods that have no place in a low carbohydrate diet. But I do have to say that for some people, that's what keeps them low carb, or even people who are like a loose carnivore, or not very strict. That is in some cases what keeps people going, is being able to have one of those treats or snacks every now and then. And so I think those things do give keto kind of a bad name, but at the same time, if it keeps somebody low carb, isn't it better than, if you had one of his peanut butter cups, isn't it better than your Reese's peanut butter cup? And so I do think that it's sad though, that whole thing just kind of tarnished, his reputation. And so I think Atkins is that kind of way of eating, or a clean keto diet, is a great place for some people to end up. I don't think everybody needs to be like a really strict carnivore. I think carnivore is a great place to start. It's a great, jumping point for people. And then you can kind of add things back in after 30 or 60 days and see how you feel. So have you done that after all this time? Have you added some things back in now?
Just what I've mentioned, the tomato paste and the onion, and really those are just sort of condiments and seasonings. Because I have done the experiments. Like in the summer, if my son's having watermelon, I have a piece of watermelon. I did that 2 years ago and I swell up. And so now I don't try anymore. I'm over it.
Yeah.
So, I really just don't feel the need to I don't miss the vegetables. Sometimes I miss like an iceberg lettuce salad. Like I used to love a blue cheese wedge, that was something I really loved with bacon. And so I can eat the blue cheese and I can eat the bacon, but I can't eat the lettuce. And sometimes like, especially in the summer, I just sort of miss that.
Right.
And I tested that last summer and it doesn't go well. I don't do well with fiber. And so I said, you know what? It's not worth it for me. So every now and then I'll test something, but it never makes it back into my world for more than that particular meal.
Yeah.
I'll never do, even when I'm wearing like a continuous glucose monitor, I'll put that monitor on and I'll think to myself, well, now would be a good time to test out some foods and see how my blood glucose reacts. But I honestly, to me, it's not even worth it. So I put the continuous glucose monitor on and I'm still just eating meat and doing my thing, even though I would have a completely legitimate excuse to dip into other things. It just doesn't really appeal to me because I know how I'm going to feel afterwards.
Right. Yeah. And I think a lot of people can have success with that, can add a few things back in here and there. I eat an artichoke every now and then with the leaves dipped in butter, and then eat the delicious artichoke heart. Most people don't even know you're supposed to eat an artichoke fresh. Most people have only had them in like dip or out of a jar. But the fresh artichoke is amazing.
Is it good? I've never had a fresh artichoke. No, only baked.
Good. I know this is a carnivore channel, but I'll just tell you, and they aren't low in oxalates either, but on occasion I'll have this. Don't be mad at me, Sally Norton. But on occasion I will have one and you buy, like if I walk through the grocery store and there is an artichoke like this, I buy them, because sometimes they're really small, but if there is a giant artichoke at the grocery store, it's coming home with me. And it's just something I do with the kids, something I used to do with my mom. And so you steam it till you can pull the leaves off really easily. And then you pull the leaves off and the bottom part of the leaf is kind of round and it's like soft. And so that's the meat of the artichoke.
Right.
And butter and like scrape it with your teeth.
This I've done. So yes, this I've had steamed artichokes. I thought you meant fresh.
Like fresh. Oh no, I meant no, I meant steamed.
Okay.
They are so good, but most people don't even know you're supposed to eat them like that. But it's just something like my kids and I will sit around at the table. It takes us like 45 minutes to eat them. It's a bonding thing. We talk and we dip our artichokes in butter and it's just something fun we do. And I didn't do that for the first like more than 2 years, but in the last 8 months or so, I've had a few of those with the kids. And it's just like a nice, refreshing treat to kind of just to kind of feel like I used to feel sitting around with my kids eating the together. You know what I mean? Like, I think
that's
hang
great.
on to some of those things. Yeah. Like we hang on to some of those things and, it's not cake for crying out loud. Right. And so it doesn't trigger anything for me. It doesn't give me any cravings. And I think a lot of people can do that. You can get to a place where there's something that you can add back in that reminds you of your childhood or, whatever, and not have it trigger things and not have it cause damage.
I'll tell you what I do on the holidays now, because I used to do, like I said, that traditional lasagna is what we do for Christmas.
Yeah.
And so now I've just modified my lasagna recipe to use egg life wraps, like just egg white wraps instead of noodles. And then the tomato sauce is fine. I make that myself. That's homemade sauce. And then, meat and cheese. And I get this delicious memory in a way that's not going to mess with me, So it's important sometimes to be able to have that because it makes the diet sustainable. If you couldn't do low carb comfortably, then you'd say low carb's not for me. But when you have options like that, then you can stick with a low carb diet.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people will say, oh, you're making carnivore pizza, you're making it look like pizza. That's just like the same thing that vegans do and try to make meat-based products. And I feel like it's a little bit different, but I also feel like it's okay to have something like as a replacement for something that you really loved, So when I order pizza for everybody else, I make pizza too. And those of us that don't eat, the store-bought pizza or from a restaurant, we will eat what I make. And then I get to walk away feeling good too, having had a really great visiting with my family on game night or whatever with our kids. And so I think that's okay. But some people get like really negative about that. Like, why do you have to make things look like why do you have to make replacements?
I think it's just people projecting their own frustrations onto you, and they're feeling bad about maybe what they think they can't eat or they feel superior because they're being strict and they want to put that paradigm on you. And, some people are like keyboard warriors. And so it's like, come on. None of it is that big of a deal. I think that the strict carnivore is fantastic when you're dealing with some really serious health issues. And if you really want to just if you're an optimizer and you don't have health issues, strict carnivore is going to sustain you. It's absolutely something you can do forever. And you can feel great and you can walk around and say, I'm the greatest, I'm the strictest, bestest carnivore. And you can feel good about that. And you'll know that your health is going to be in tremendous shape, but there's no sense in shaming people who are just trying to do better than what they were doing before, because they're not as good as you.
Right. Exactly. I agree. Okay. So what about book recommendations? Do you have any book recommendations for people?
So my favorite carnivore book that I would love to recommend to everybody is always Maria and Craig Emmerich's Carnivore Cookbook, because it has this great amount of science. I think it's about 60 pages up front of the science of carnivore, how it works, why you would want to consider doing a carnivore diet, and how it is like really great for optimal human health. So I love that book. And I have to put a plug for Coach Bronson Dant, because he's got a book coming out that you can get now on Kindle, pre-order. It will be out in hardcover in fall of 2024. And that is called Body Confident. That's a great book. Highly recommend. It talks about, being flexible with your dieting journey and not being stuck to a single paradigm, but being able to sort through the noise and figure out which methods work best for you, so that you can, have that body confidence.
Yeah. Bronson's a great coach. If anybody's looking for that kind of a coach too, personal trainer kind of coach, Bronson's a great option for that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
So if you had one piece of advice for people getting started, what would that be?
My piece of advice for anybody getting started on, and you mean like diet wise?
Yeah.
I would love if people could sort of keep their mellow about them. I think that at the end of the day, stress is what gets us, and worry is what gets us. Having poor sleep is going to undo any of the diet stuff that you're working on during the day. So figuring out a way to maintain your mellow, be a little bit less stressed. I like to say stress less carnivore. So do the carnivore things or the low carb things that are sustainable for you, and don't worry about what you think someone else is going to think about those things. It's important, because sometimes if you believe that your way will work, your way is going to work better than if you are fighting with, I have to do this, I hate it, but I have to do it, or you're worried like, I'm doing this, but I'm not doing it good enough. And what will they think of me? That stress will hinder progress. So I say maintain mellow. As far as foods, always have cooked burger patties in your fridge, because then you won't be reaching for cheese sticks. That is a great beginner tip.
Yes, I agree with that 100%. Linda, where can people find you?
You can find me online on Instagram. I am at the Carnitarian. You can check out my YouTube channel, which just sort of relaunched on Friday. I'm super excited about it. Bronson was on. That's at the Carnitarian Life on Instagram. I'm sorry, on YouTube. And I've got a Facebook channel, the Carnitarian. You can find me there too. But generally, I'm always on Instagram. And you can find all of my links. You can book coaching sessions with me. All of that is through my Instagram link tree. You'll find it in my bio.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time today, Linda. I appreciate it.
It's absolutely my pleasure. It's so much fun to talk to you. Thanks, Serena.
You too. And thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on the Carnivore Revolution.